If you've been ghosted, you probably tell yourself a story. I must not be attractive. I said something wrong. If I were truly lovable, they wouldn't disappear. What if the silence you're obsessing over actually has nothing little to do with you? In this video, I'm breaking down the real psychological engine behind ghosting, the hidden social rules, the peer pressure, and the narratives that quietly nudge people to vanish instead of just communicate. But by the end, you're going to see the silence so different that you can finally stop chasing closure and start regaining control. I'm Davis, and I hope people who've been ghosted stop spiraling, decode what silence actually means, and rebuild confidence without begging for answers. Most ghosting advice focus on the person who disappeared. They're just avoidant, they're emotionally immature, they're a narcissist. Sometimes that is true, but if we only look at the individual who ghosted you, we miss the bigger picture here. The environment that trained them to disappear. In this video, we'll cover why ghosting is less about you and more about the norms they're trapped in, how their friends and online communities quietly encourage disappearing, the role of shame and moral language in keeping you stuck in the silence, and a new way to respond that pulls you out of obsession and back into self-respect. Right now, especially if you're in your late teens or 20s, you're living through something we haven't seen at this scale before. More isolation, less commitment, more loneliness. We know younger generations are having fewer relationships and less sex than previous ones. Loneliness is being treated like a public health crisis. So you're not just dealing with one flaky person. You're dating in a culture where people are overwhelmed with options. Real conversations are replaced by short texts and disappearing stories. Ghosting becomes a default escape hatch in the system. It's not the disease, it's a symptom of a deeper issue. We train people to exit quietly instead of repair honesty. Before we go deeper, if you're currently stuck in your own spiraling, I run something called the Ghosting Reset Room. It's a free space where I'll walk you through calming the immediate anxiety after being ghosted, separating from what's them and what's you, resetting your expectations so you're not glued to your phone waiting for a message. If you want support while you process this, you'll find the link to the Ghosting Reset Room below this video. You don't have to figure this out while your brain is in panic mode. Now, let's look at the invisible rules that push them to disappear in the first place. We like to imagine ghosting as a private personal decision. They stop replying because I said something or I did something. But a lot of disappearing behavior is shaped by something you never really see. The social rules and peer pressure around them. We're all more sensitive to the reactions of our in-group than we are to strangers. For most people, that in-group isn't you. It's their friends' opinions, their group chat, their online communities, and their favorite creators. If their friends treat dating like a game where the worst thing you can be is too attached or too serious, disappearing on you can actually feel like the safe, social approved move. They don't sit down and say, I'm going to ghost to impress my friends. Psychologically, it looks more like they feel awkward or guilty about not liking you enough. They imagine what their friends would say if they admitted that discomfort. They remember people being mocked for being too sensitive or too dramatic. Their nervous system picks the option with the least short-term social risk. So ghosting often protects them from embarrassment in front of their own peers more than it protects you from pain. Let's zoom in on how this peer pressure actually works. Groups tend to train behavior using these three invisible tools: shame, praise, and moral language. First is shame. Shame doesn't always look like outright bullying. It can look like eye rolls in the group chat. Why are you making it a big deal? Just block them already. If someone in the group chat says, I feel bad, this person keeps texting me and I don't want to hurt, the group often doesn't reward empathy. They reward disconnection. Just ghost and don't overthink. So the person learns, if I care too much about someone's feelings, I get labeled as needy, soft, or emotional. Second is praise. If someone plays it cool, juggles multiple people, or cuts someone off without a word, they might get laughed. You're so cool. You're so unbothered. That's dopamine. Their brain begins to associate disappearing with status and approval. Third is moral language. This is subtle but powerful. People start using moral labels to frame human basic reactions. Someone just wants clarity becomes clingy, obsessed, and can't even take a hint. So when you text once or twice for closure, that gets framed as moral failing on your part. And the quiet exit feels not just easier, but almost righteous. Ghosting is kind of leading them on. Becomes the story that tells themselves. None of this cancels the pain that you feel when your phone stays silent. If you have even mild anxious attachment, ghosting doesn't feel like someone stopped texting you. It feels like evidence that you are not enough, proof that connection isn't safe. A replay of earlier experiences where love felt unstable or withdrawn. Your attachment system is wired to look for cause and effect. If I can find exactly what I did wrong, I can prevent this from ever happening. That's why you replay every message, every date, and every joke. You're scanning for the magic mistake that finally explains their silence. But remember when we laid out a decision that was shaped by their fear of conflict, their friends' reactions, their online scripts that are absorbed, their own shame and avoidant patterns. Your brain, in pain, collapses all complexity into one brutal sentence. It's me, I am the problem. That's not self-awareness, that's just self-blaming yourself. The same kind of moral language that justify their ghosting also keeps you trapped after it happens. Notice the phrase that popped into your mind. If I were confident, they wouldn't have left. If I had better boundaries, I wouldn't attract this. I must be broken to keep ending up here. You start diagnosing yourself with labels you see online. I'm the toxic, I'm codependent, I scare people away. Yes, sometimes this is real work to do on patterns and boundaries, but a lot of this labeling is your brain trying to create certainty in an uncertain situation. Moral labels feel powerful because at the end of the question, if you decide I'm just unlovable, the investigation stops. There's pain, but there's also a strange relief. Now you know why. The problem is that why is built on incomplete information. You're judging yourself without the access to their attachment history, their social environment, and their shame and their conflict avoidance, the silent rules of their peer group. You're giving yourself a life sentence with half the evidence. Instead of obsessing over, what did I do wrong? Try this question. What pressures and fears made disappearing feel safer for them than being honest? This doesn't excuse their behavior, it contextualizes it. When you think system, person, and you, instead of just you change a few things. You stop imagining them as an all-powerful judge of your worth. See their silence as a coping strategy, not a verdict. You become more curious and less self-condemning. For example, someone who grew around explosive conflict might have learned telling the truth about my feelings equals danger. Add friends who joke about that ghosting is normal, and content about that glorifies being unbothered, and very quickly, disappearing becomes the least frightening option for them. You were never given that backstory. Your nervous system filled the gap between self and blame. Let's make this practical. Here's a simple framework you can use the next time if this happens or if it's happening right now. Step 1 is a clean invitation to clarity. If you feel safe, send one grounded, non-bleeding message like, hey, I noticed the communication's dropped off. If you're no longer interested, I respect you for being direct. If I don't hear back, I'll take that as my answer and wish you well. That does two things. It aligns with your values and you showed up with honesty. It creates a clear point in for your own mind. Step 2, you close your own side of the loop. After that message or after a reasonable amount of silence, you need to make a decision. I am not going to keep applying for a job where they won't schedule for the interview. You don't need the cooperation to close your own loop. Step 3, you want to rewrite the whole story. Take 5 minutes to write down 2 stories. Story A, the blame script. They ghosted because I'm insert your usual self-attack. Story B is a talk context script. They ghosted because disappearing feels safer than honesty in the environment they live in. That hurts, but it does not define my worth. You're not pretending your story B is 100% fact. You're choosing a story that is at least as plausible and as far less destructive. Step 4, you want to replace moral labels with descriptions. Every time you catch yourself thinking, I'm pathetic for still thinking about them, I'm crazy for wanting closure, swap it for a description. I'm a person with a nervous system that craves completion. I want clarity because of connection matters to me. Descriptions give you space to change. Labels pin you to the wall. You can't guarantee you'll never be ghosted again, but you can build better filters. Look for people who can tolerate small, uncomfortable conversations. Don't mock exes or old dates for wanting clarity. Don't brag about how savage or unbothered they are at dating. Have at least one stable long-term relationship in their life. Friend, family, mentor does not have to be romantic. Ask small revealing questions early on like, how do you usually end things when you're not feeling it? Their answer tells you whether they see honesty as a burden or as a baseline. And remember, someone being charming, attentive, and intense at the start tells you almost nothing about how they handle discomfort at the end. Filter for their ending style, not their beginning style. If this is landing because you're in the middle of being ghosted right now, there are 2 ways I can walk with you through this, not just talk at you about it. First is the ghosting reset room. That's where we focus on stabilizing you in the first few days and weeks after being ghosted, getting your nervous system out of panic, interrupting, and obsessive checking, and giving you a script so you're not guessing what to do next. Second, for when you're ready to go deeper than just getting through this one person, I put together a ghosting recovery blueprint. It's a step-by-step path to break the repeat cycle of attracting the same kind of disconnection, rebuild your sense of worth and independent who texts us back, and create a dating filter that screens out chronicle ghosters before you get attached. You'll find the links to both the reset room and the blueprint below this video. Choose the one that fits where you are right now. Being ghosted hurts because it slams right into your deepest need for stability and recognition. But the silence is not a cosmic verdict on your value. It's a snapshot of how the person has learned to deal with fear, shame, and social pressure. When you shift from, What did I do to deserve this? 2. What made their safest option? You stop making their coping mechanism the mirror of their worth. If you want help untangling a specific ghosting situation or keep ending up in these cycles and can't tell what's them and what's you, that's what this whole channel is for. Subscribe if you want to understand the psychological silence instead of just suffering through it. If this video helped you see your situation differently, drop a comment and tell me one thing you're choosing to stop blaming yourself for. I'm Davis. You're not broken because you disappeared. You're living in a culture that trained people to ghost. Now, let's start training your mind to respond differently.